Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. It is a brisk Monday morning. 23 degrees, going to be high of around 27. And the chance of precipitation is going to increase throughout the overnight. 7:07 is the sunrise, and 4:07 is the sunset. Winter is upon us. But the good news is the days are going to start growing longer again at the end of December here. So, um, we have we're looking forward to a change, right? Looking forward to a change, and so we are in a study of Judges, and we're in Judges chapter 2, and we finished up at verse 5 where it says, and they called the name of the place Bachim, and they sacrificed there to the Lord. And I kind of asked the rhetorical question at the end of that. That's Judges chapter 2 and verse 5. Uh, you know, was this sorry, right? When they were sorry. It says they wept in verse 4. They lifted up their voices and wept when they heard the Lord spoke these words unto all the people of Israel. They lifted up their voices and they wept. And then they sacrificed there. And were they sorry that they got caught? Were they sorry that they had to give up their idols? Or were they sorry that they grieved the Lord? Right? Were they sorry that um, they turned back from the Lord? What kind of sorry were they? Okay. And now in Judges chapter 2, verse 6, 6 through 10, actually, we have a flashback. We have a flashback to the death of Joshua. And now Joshua in 1 1, Judges 1 1 says, after the death of Joshua. So Joshua's already dead. This is a literary strategy in Hebrew writing. When they write, it's just like in Genesis chapter 1. In Genesis chapter 1, it's the same thing here, where he unfolds a broad view, and then they go back and they give you a more in-depth look of what was going on, right? And so in Genesis chapter 1, they've got the in creation, and then he created man, and then he goes back and gives us a more in-depth look at how he created man and woman, right? And saw that Adam, it's not good for Adam to be alone, right? So they go back and they give you a more precise and in-depth look at how that happened. So that's exactly what's happening here. So this is a introduction to the next part of the book, verses 6 through 10. So it goes back to say, let's look at verse 10. And all the generation also were gathered to their fathers, and there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord, or the work that he had done for Israel. Now, in verse 7, in verse 7 it says, all the people served the Lord the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen the great work that the Lord had done for Israel. So, we have a contrast, okay? So Joshua and the elders that were there were holding it together, right? And they served the Lord all the days that they were there. But then after Joshua and that elder group passed, now they started to deviate. They did not know, it says in verse 10, they did not know the Lord or the work that he had done. And as a dad, right, as a Christian, our job is to make sure that people know what the Lord's done for us. Our job is to make sure our children know how the Lord has moved, how the Lord has saved us, how the Lord has worked in my life and filled my heart, my broken heart, which is still broken. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be a sinner until I go home to be with the Lord. But the hurts and the change, the transformation that He's done in my heart, in my life, in my home, in my marriage, the miraculous saving grace that He called me into adoption as a son of God, right? That it is important that we teach these things to the next generation. It's very important. And look what it says in verse 11. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. Okay? That's what happens when they don't know what God has done for us. When if our children don't know, or others that we come in contact with don't know and see the Lord and what He's done with us in our hearts, what's going to happen is the people, when we're gone, right? When we're gone, the people will do what's evil in the sight of the Lord, and they're going to serve idols, okay? Verse 12, and they abandoned the Lord. Okay, so now they're gonna do what's evil in the sight of the Lord. They're gonna serve the Baals. They're gonna abandon the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. They went after. So now it's active. It's not just that they forgot about God, right? It's not that it's just that they abandoned Him. Now they go after other gods from among the gods of the peoples whom were around them, and bowed down to them, and provoked the Lord to anger. Now remember, we talked about this, about what Israel did not do. I was going to say did, but they did not do, is they did not completely and utterly destroy the inhabitants of the land that God promised them. And He told us why in Deuteronomy 20. He told us why in verse 18. Because they will persuade us, or they will entice us to serve their gods, okay? And so that's what happens. And, it's easy to get caught up in the idols of the world, okay? It's easy to get caught up in the idols of the world, especially if it appears that those idols are successful, right? And have a good time, right? If they're successful and have a good time. Because, we, many times we get mad at God's sovereign will, quite frankly. We get mad or disgruntled or I don't even know what the word I'm looking for, disgraced by the circumstances God has us in. We think we deserve better than what God has given us, or where God has placed us, what job, what ministry, what house, right? What location, where we live. These things that God has done and He's blessed us with is because it's a little hard. We get mad at God, or we don't feel successful. So these things of the world we gravitate towards because we haven't completely and utterly destroyed sin in our heart, okay? And it's easy, especially with the phones and the social media, it's real easy to get caught up in idols of the world, okay? It's real easy to get caught up in idols of the world. And then look what they do. And they bowed down to them, and they provoked the Lord to anger. So we make God mad when we do that. Then it says in verse 13, they abandoned the Lord and served the Baals and the Ashereth. Okay? That's what we do. We abandon the Lord. When it gets hard, we chase the idols of the world, especially when we think they're successful, when the culture says it's right. When we know it's wrong, we'll turn to it, we'll affirm it, that big word of affirmation of sin. We do that. And that's exactly what happens when we let sin hang around, okay? When we don't completely and utterly destroy it out of the land which God promised us, and we keep it in our hearts. And so the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he gave them over to plunderers, who plundered them and sold them into the hand of the surrounding enemies, so that they could no longer withstand their enemies. Whenever they marched out, the hand of the Lord was against them for harm, as the Lord had warned, and as the Lord had sworn to them, and they were in terrible distress. That's what happens when we chase idols, when we make God mad, when we don't serve him, when we abandon him, right? When we bow down to the idols of the world, and God's anger is provoked against us, right? We're in terrible distress. We're in terrible distress. Now, God chastens those who he loves. So if that's you right now, that's how you can start the transition back in thankful thinking. Okay, God chastens those whom he loves.